Public meeting.
There you guys are all, man. It's 479, not 499.
We are live, Your Honor.
Thank you. You hear that okay, Greg? You hear that? Did you hear that? Okay? Just kidding. Good morning, everybody. It's we have a public hearing. We have it August 23rd. It is the 23rd, isn't it? About 8:47 or 8:52 rather. Public hearing on considering the tax rate for Liberty County for the year, which starts October 1st, runs through September 30th. Proposed tax rate is 0.4799 per hundred. The no new revenue tax rate 0.457 and the voter approval tax rate 0.480. But so if you will think back in history, and Brother Rick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was 2 years ago it was 0.5788. Last year was, I think, 0.5548. And then today we're looking at 0.4799. So it keeps going down. There's always a reason for it. So with that being said, it's public hearing time. If anybody has anything that they would like to comment on, then we got a few minutes for you to comment.
Judge, I stand just to give a little clarification.
Yes, sir.
You've done a good job, but we're about 30,000 feet, so I'm gonna bring it down a little closer.
Okay, bring it on down.
Of course, like you say, I compliment you that you're looking to, not try to exceed the voter approval rate and you're a hair under, which technically means you're staying within what the legislature has said you can go up 1.035%, for kind of your inflation clause and everything else. So everyone's given that right without even having to get voter approval. In years past, when they call it the rollback and the effective rate, this is our third year we're using these new terms of no new revenue and voter approved rate.
What used to be the effective rate?
Yes, so the effective rate was the no new revenue, the rollback was the voter approved. So it kind of simply means that if you go above that 1.035, you have to go on the ballot in November, and then you put it before the taxpayer, the voters, to see if they want to fund that increase. What's caused a lot of this is the $1.97 billion increase in values. And it's not just simply your house went up in value, but there's also new properties being generated and new values coming in. So when the values go up, the rates come down. And fortunately, we're in a improvement in that area, so it allows you to charge a less tax rate. So I applaud you for taking that approach rather than going after the increased value and trying to raise the rate, which you could do by an election and raise more revenue. But basically by using this number, you're raising the same amount of revenue with this year's values and last year's rate. So that's kind of in simple terms. You're satisfying that with a 3.5% increase. Everything goes up. So the legislation wasn't so restricted to say you have to lose money. They're giving you an ability to, bump things up a little bit, 3.5.
Well, we had a meeting, Sheriff was at, of course, pretty much all law enforcement was there last week, where we were discussing funding law enforcement in the county. And we've been proactive in that measure since, I know, 2015 at least, when Greg and Leon and I came in together. And that we're getting closer and closer where we'd like to be, but still in salaries, but not yet boots on the ground. And the question came up, well, can't you just raise the taxes and let that money go straight to the sheriff's department? I'm like, no, I don't want to go to jail this week or next week or any other time.
Yeah.
It's against the law. I can't designate a tax increase to go to one particular department.
You have a budget.
Yeah, you have a budget. That's right. So when you look at that and you look at the potential for growth, and then always, and you and I've discussed this for since our time on Dayton City Council and DCDC board as well, that we're always about 2 years behind.
Yes.
No matter what. But, when I came into office in 2015, our certified values were about 4.8 billion. That's with a B. And today, I think Angela ought to be around 10.2 billion.
The 10.531 billion.
10.531. I stand corrected just by a few million there. It's okay. 100 million. But anyway,
yeah,
that's what has happened. And it we still have to, as we say, live within our means. Yeah. And it affects me, affects everybody. I'm over 65.
Something that, we can't count is the 300 million of new properties built in 22. That will accrue to you next year, but you can't count it in figuring this year because they weren't here last year. So that is even another little bump that you'll get next year.
Right.
But as long as values keep going up, your rate theoretically should be able to at least hold fast or go down.
Yeah.
And in doing all the tax rates for some 25 entities, 24 that I collect for and do the tax returns, tax calculations, it looks like everyone pretty much has been able to take advantage and capture that increased value and had the ability to lower rates. I'm not saying everyone is choosing that. Some of them are kind of hamstrung because some things beyond their control, they may have to bump that up or try to bump it up. So that's, unfortunately, the county is not in that position. You have a good, good site going, you have good valuations. And I know people complain about values going up, but again, this is some of the benefit the rate's able to come down.
Well, our debt service does not reflect the overall condition of the county.
Right.
And I applaud our tighter than a needle fiddle string auditor group for being that way.
Yeah.
It helps us, and it's what you do.
Well, the debt goes into it, participation in TERS, all these things that you're taking part in all have effect on your calculation of your tax rate. Your sales tax, you basically, because you have a sales tax dedicated to M&O, maintenance and operation expenses, you have to take that into account and figure your rate as well. So all those things come together. It's not just one little simple calculation. So you have the benefit of rising values. You're taking advantage of it by lowering the rate. Mm-hmm. And I think that's serving the public as well as you can.
I believe so.
I'm gonna get off my soapbox.
That's all right. Here, I'll go ahead. Let me quit.
Okay.
Thank you. Yesterday we had a meeting over potential TERS, for the county to be involved in. And it was one of those TERS 101 moments, and thank Lee and Kyle for being there because it's on YouTube forever and ever and ever. So if you want to have, if the public and their perseverance for transparency purposes, you want to have the opportunity to see how we operate and sit down with a group of developers when they request one of the tools in the toolbox to help their new endeavor in the county to move forward. It's on YouTube, and you can sit there and watch it. And there's a lot of good questions that were asked. It's you're always going to have a developer that asks for the moon, and as David said nicely, we might give them a little bitty star next to it, but we're not going to give them the whole moon. Okay, so those are the things that we have to deal with. And there was a very, very good explanation in the what a TERS is and how it operates for economic development, and especially for residential development, commercial or industrial development in the county. And we'll be having a whole bunch more of those in the future. I can tell you that right now. And that's just part of what we do. So you're invited to go back and pull that up and look at it. Those of you that are in the public that have the potential to pull up a YouTube video, I know if you can watch investigative reporters on YouTube, you can sure enough look at some at reporting by the Commissioners Court in the Economic Development Index. It's real easy. Okay, anybody else have anything as far as public hearing on the proposed tax rate? I'll let this run down, Matthew. It's just a few more taps and it's okay. We'll call it time.
Expecting notice to come.
No, ma'am. Well, off of that clubhouse wall, so it's time to call it. Okay. We'll close our public hearing this morning. We're going into the Commissioners Court regular meeting, Liberty County, Texas, August 23rd. It's about 9:04 a.m. Call this meeting to order. Let the record show that Commissioner Arthur's here and Commissioner Whitmire's here. Commissioner Wilson is absent today, and as well as Commissioner Karbowski. But we still have business for the court. We have somewhat of a quorum, but we can make it work. And we'll see just how far we can get along here and not be too hamstrung. Okay. So if we all would, let's rise. Lee, if you would make some pledges.
Please face the American flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please face the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
And if y'all would pray with me this morning. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the wonderful blessings you give us in life, for the opportunities. For the opportunity this morning, we put our feet on the ground. We opened our eyes and had the chance to get up and get our first cup of coffee that you provided for us. Lord, thank you for being with us as we go through each day. We hope that we do our best to do things that are pleasing unto you, that are helpful to our fellow residents, our fellow men and women. Lord, thank you for recent rains. It really has helped out a lot of folks. And we thank you for this blessing. Lord, please be with the commissioners that aren't with us today. And please watch over them and bring them back safely to us. Lord, please be with our men and women in uniform, wherever they're serving. Our first responders, Lord. There's been an awful lot of accidents in our county the last few weeks, few days especially. Lord, please be with those folks and those families that were affected. And Lord, as always, please forgive us for our shortcomings. Please. We ask these things in Jesus' most precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, as we said, we got some notices and proclamations this morning. And Dr. Babin, our congressman, he called me a while back. I could talk about Dr. Babin about sometimes once a week. Now, he might be in Washington, but he's going to come. And it's always a fun visit, especially when either I get to talk to Will or to Kelly or anybody that is on the staff. And we've been discussing the problems at the border. And anyway, we he needed some help. And we have a little problem at the border. I won't, you know about it as much as I know about it. And the problem is, well, maybe funding. Actually, what is the state of Texas regard as for the funding, and then it affects our law enforcement. Sheriff knows as well as I do. Normally, about half of our DPS is at the border. That's supposed to be assigned to Liberty County, and they rotate. Greg has a son that is a DPS. I think he's a lieutenant now, or
Yeah, he's a special project.
Yeah. And he's down south Texas, but he still gets rolled over to the border, just like anybody else. And so Dr. Babin asked if we could give him a little help and maybe open the eyes of people beyond the borders of Texas, and maybe open the eyes of the folks in Washington to say that this really is a bigger problem than what their anticipations are and what their feelings are. But this isn't the time for that. If you want to talk about bipartisanship, here's your chance. So he sent a resolution to ask the Commissioners Court to pass the resolution. It's non-binding, Matthew, as far as I know. We read over it. It basically just says, hey, wave a flag, y'all take a look, and please help the state of Texas and help the governor, and then help the congressman. Anyway, I guess I could read it. Resolution calling for additional measures to secure the border, stop the invasion at the border, and protect our communities. Whereas the preamble to the United States Constitution outlines the chief responsibility of the federal government to ensure domestic tranquility and provide for the common defense. And whereas Article 4, Section 4, United States Constitution clearly states, the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government and shall protect them against invasion. And whereas Article 7 of the Texas Constitution clearly states that the governor of Texas shall be commander-in-chief of the military forces of the state, except when they are called into actual service in the United States. He shall have power to all forth the militia, to execute the laws of state, to suppress insurrections, and to repel invasions. And whereas cartels exploit weak and unsecured borders for their own power and profit to the detriment of our communities, and whereas cartels act a paramilitary narco-terrorist organizations that profit from trafficking people and drugs in the United States. And whereas the United States has a drug epidemic whereby tens of thousands of Americans die every year, and specifically, Liberty County has a major health and public safety issue with methamphetamines, which greatly impacts our communities, our families, our jail, our court system, and our other local resources. And Sheriff, you can attest to that, I'm sure, as well as our county attorney and district attorney. Whereas the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol reports that CBP agents seized 192,000 pounds of amphetamine at the southern border during 2021. And whereas the ongoing border security crisis is not acceptable, it has resulted in a security threat and humanitarian disaster with overwhelming consequences to residents in the state of Texas. And whereas numerous Texas border counties experiencing local disaster situations as a result of inadequate border security have passed declarations and resolutions calling for further action and security on the border, southern border of Texas. And whereas the Liberty County Commissioners Court desires to express its support for those border counties and to express its desire for stronger border security measures, which impact all of our Texas communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Liberty County Commissioners Court, 1, recognizes our southern Texas border is suffering an invasion And 2, recognizes and affirms the sovereign and unilateral authority explicitly reserved to the states, respectively, under Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution and Article 4, Section 7 of the Texas Constitution, to defend themselves against invasion, which has been exacerbated by the federal government's failure in meeting its constitutional obligation to ensure domestic tranquility. 3, to provide for the common defense, execute the laws, protect each state in parentheses against invasion, and 4, supports the state-led efforts of Operation Lone Star and the expanded operation authorities available under Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution and Article 4, Section 7 of the Texas Constitution. And 5, request Governor Abbott to take necessary steps as allowed under Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution and Article 4, Section 7 of the Texas Constitution to secure the Texas border and stop the invasion at the border, including the actions by paramilitary narco-terrorist cartels that pose a huge risk to our communities. And number 6, calls for the federal government to uphold its duties to adequately secure and protect the borders of the United States. And I would ask that the court would adopt this resolution today. And let's give the governor and our congressman at least take the gloves off. Let's get a little bit of help here. I know good and well that what the sheriff has to deal with on a daily basis. I hear it. And I know what Matthew's office and the county attorney's office has to deal with. And I hear at times what the DA's office has to deal with. I don't deal with them on a daily basis, but it truly is out of hand. And if this will give the congressman and the governor the opportunity to get more recognition for this fight to help secure the border, maybe in my lifetime, something will be done. So is this going to be a vote, Matthew? Just basically a resolution, I believe, is all it's going to be.
Yes, I think so. The commissioners to vote on it.
Okay. All right.
Move to adopt the resolution.
Got a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And I'll get to vote today, please, since I'm going to be a commissioner. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, and we'll get this filled out and send it into the congressman and copy to the governor. All righty. Public comment. Anybody got any comments today? Going once, going twice. Let's move on to declare conflicts of interest. We have anybody that have any to declare today?
10.
Number 10.
Second, 7.5%.
Consent agenda 7.5, oaths of deputations. Well, yeah, let's remove that one today and place it on the future.
Yeah, we'll just make a motion to approve the consent agenda without that.
Yes. Okay. And the reason is, it's not, this kind of conflict of interest, but it wouldn't look good for Greg to vote on his own approval for as a reserve deputy. So being that we're missing 2 commissioners, he would have to abstain. It would only be 2 votes, and that's not a quorum. So, okay. So now we got that all cleared up, folks. Number 5.1, I guess, or 5A.
7.5, first line.
Yeah. 1.5, first line. Okay. Okay. So is that a motion to approve all except for that, correct?
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. Did we have any additions to the? Oh,
We did? Okay.
We do have an addition. It's a budget amendment for precinct 5 constable. I'll give it to you. It happened just this one. This is a budget amendment for precinct 5 constable. We need to get their new SRO on the books.
It's just gonna be a budget amendment.
Yes.
Okay.
You want it right now? I can get a copy over done.
Kim, did you have anything else?
I don't, thank you, sir.
Okay, I'm making a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of, item 7.5, line, top first line.
And the budget.
And what, yeah, which is,
All right, got a motion second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. It's pretty easy to get by that. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's move on to the regular agenda. First one, consider and approve reappointment of Clint Bush to the Southeast Texas Housing Finance Corporation. Let's get that change in there. It's not the Housing Authority, but it's the Southeast Texas Housing Finance Corporation for another 4-year term. And these doing a good job. These folks are helping out the county.
who do we approve?
Got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. A motion from Greg, second and from David, and that does pass. Number 2 on the regular agenda, consider and approve the amendment to turnkey health contract to increase nurse coverage and add psych provider hours for inmate healthcare services. Penny, glad you're here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Come on a little closer so we can see you. No, you can't stay over there. You got to get closer.
Gotta get
You go here by Greg so he can hear you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are asking the court this morning for additional medical services through our current contractor turnkey health clinics. Those services include, under the revised amendment, 2 full-time nurses, which would increase our medical to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that'll fill in our gaps that we currently have after hours and on the weekends. So hopefully that'll help deter some of the non-emergencies that are going out.
Yeah.
And deter some of the cost too. So hopefully that will eliminate that. We're also asking for 2 hours psychiatric services for mental health per week because we do not currently have those services. We have a licensed professional counselor. So because of that, our medical our doctor is having to prescribe the mental health meds, and that's taken away from him doing sick calls. So we really do need to add the 2 hour psych into there to take care of that and address the mental health. We also are asking to increase our ADP from 250 to 300. And that will eliminate our per diem. We pay so much per inmate per day. If we're over that 250, that doesn't affect jail commission. That's just what we're going to pay turnkey to take care of our people medically. So it doesn't change any of that verbiage. It just changed, our contract for them to take care of up to 300. That way we're not paying additional for them. So, and that's going to save us roughly $15,000 a year from, having to pay per inmate on that. It does bring the total up, a little bit because we are paying for 2 licensed nurses. We are paying for psychiatric help. And we are adding the ADP in there, but I feel like the more fixed costs that we have inside the jail, the less we're going to have, and the cost on the outside that's not predictable. We don't know what that'll be, and we'll quit treating unnecessary emergencies on the outside, and ERs and ambulances and all of that, and we'll fix that on the inside. So I think the cost is really going to save the county.
Good.
So.
Hear that, Angela? It's gonna save the county? Okay.
In the long run.
Lafayette, yeah.
Yeah, Judge, I was going
Yes,
to say one thing that really affects two different budgets. One is the medical part, but on her part, what happens is when the nurse leaves, the correctional officers are not medical people. And if somebody says they're sick or something they think is pretty bad, they send them to the hospital.
Yeah.
Where if they had a nurse there, they could handle it. In a lot of cases, I think there's been a couple of exceptions, but in most cases, a nurse on site would have taken care of it instead of them going to office and running up her charges.
Yes, yes.
And when you have a transfer out to the hospital, you have to have 2 officers to go with that inmate.
I think just, yes, there is 2.
Yeah.
One I know for sure, but, and one sits with them.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So that increases the cost as
Very
well.
costly. Yes.
Okay. Overtime, cop time, all that good, all the time. Yeah. Okay. Angela, you have any questions about this? Is this going to go in now or is it going to go in the new budget?
Right. No, it's not gonna go into now. They're gonna,
October
yeah,
first, October 1st.
Hallelujah.
effective
Yes.
October 1st.
They had it for September 1st, but then when I consulted, our auditor's office, we fixed it and made it for October 1st that way, because they have to do hiring to, if it passes, they have to do hiring. It gives them time to get their staff, because they need to have time to hire new nurses.
And she brought it up. I just want to reiterate, when we did the contract, we based it on 250 inmates.
Yes, sir.
And we hadn't even been close to that. In fact, when jail commission was here, Commissioner Arthur came and met with them.
Yes, sir.
We were over 300 when jail commission was here, and it stays around 300. So
Right.
that 296, I think, yesterday.
Well, we're going to have to cross that bridge here
Yes.
pretty soon. But you did get a good overall report in your audit by the commission.
Yeah, he was impressed with the improvements they made.
Yeah.
The medical department got a very good
Yeah.
report, so we're very happy with turnkey as far.
Yes, that's one of the things, and Penny was there at the meeting, and Jackie, but they were really high on the medical this time. I mean,
Yes.
as you know, we had a lot of problems with the past, and
Yes, sir.
I mean, they got an A+.
Yes, sir. Good.
So,
Good deal.
very pleased with them.
All right. Well, we'll just keep buying some more belly mark here for you, Sheriff. It's all right. All righty. So we got a motion for Greg, second from David to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. That was easy. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Penny.
Thank you.
Number 3 is from Ms. Harris. Consider and approve the annual random selection of the sick pool committee members.
And we still have the same box.
We have the same box. Oh, boy.
Yes, so we
Okay.
have on the sick pool committee, we have a representative from the county attorney's office, one from the county auditor's office, and the sick pool administrator who is in my office. We also have 2 employee representatives, and we need an alternate. So today, we're drawing for the 2 employee representatives and 1 alternate. But if you draw names of 2 people who are in the same department, we have to have a redo.
Well, you know where they all are,
Let's
so
get
you get me through that part.
I'll try.
Okay. All right.
Let's shake the box.
Let's check the box.
Okay.
Okay. Reaching down, way down deep inside. Oh, okay.
Number 1.
Golly. Chad Langdon.
All right.
Constable 2.
Yep, Chad Langdon.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Well, he's gonna love me for that, isn't
He is.
he? Yeah,
Luckily, they don't have to meet very often.
yeah. Christopher Vining, Road and Bridge 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So far, so good. 1 more for an alternate.
Well, we're gonna buy a lotto ticket after this.
Okay.
Yeah. Mark Dubose with the Sheriff's Office.
Okay. He's our alternate.
All righty.
And that is it. And just a reminder that the whole month of October, we accept donations for the sick. So,
Donations. I don't have any
Yes.
sick time.
no, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Can I have those? Will you set that up?
I was trying to get them in there. That was Road and Bridge Precinct 4. So when you just pick it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Vining was Road Bridge 4. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I need a motion and a second to approve this random selection. The Sick Pool Committee,
I move to approve the selection has been made.
motion from Greg, second from David. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. And Ms. Webb's here today. Ms. Webb, come on up. This is Veteran Services is consider and approve renewal of financial assistance fund for the Veterans Assistance Grant for year 23-24, when the grant opportunity renewal opens before the end of year 2022, which will be sometime before December, hopefully.
Yes, generally it's August to September, so it's a window.
Okay, so no changes for the renewal of the grant, the same amount, 50,000, same budget, same coverage, mortgage, rent, and utilities. This is only a request to renew the current grant. A new grant application for assistance cannot be submitted this time. Okay, so what you got?
So first of all, I want to tell the commissioners, thank you for saying yes the last 3 years. Your yes has helped veterans prevent foreclosure, eviction, sustain their well-being. Just because you say yes, a lot of counties do not have this in place. And so first, I want to say thank you to you all for giving us the opportunity to have this grant in place to support and serve our veterans, and to the departments that helped the last 3 years with the grant, the auditor's office, purchasing, treasurer's office, as well as attorney, and not least, but the Veteran Service Department. Together, we have made a success for 3 years supporting the veterans, and on their behalf, I want to say thank you. The renewal, as I stated on the agenda, not everything will remain the same. It's still amount for $50K, and it's going to be covering client services for the veterans, utility, mortgage, rent, as you explained. So the application that's will be open between August and September. It's just a renewal application. They give us a year after we put a grant in, then they ask us to renew it. And if we keep pretty much everything the same, it's a go.
Okay,
We'll get through.
thank you. All right.
Question. Is there any possibility in the future that you guys see of raising that amount? It seems like we've been using it.
We have been using it, and the reason I keep the numbers about the same, because based on performance of the grant, if we put X amount of dollars and it's way high and we're performing below the veterans, using it, then the grant go away.
Right.
So it's like a balance there. You have to have a certain amount of money and a certain number of veterans. That's usually the grant. If we have more money at the end than we had veterans, then that doesn't look good on that part. So we're actually have not turned any veterans away. The veterans that's been coming in has been getting assistance. So it's been working out with that amount. I know it seemed like a small amount, but it's actually covering veterans' needs. Right.
So I was just wondering if at some point in the future we'll be able to. Do you need to attract more veterans? Is that what?
We send out mass veterans, they know about it. Some veterans, they have their preference, they pride.
Right.
Sometimes they use it, sometimes they don't, but it's there for the veterans. And the numbers, like I said, those who've been coming in, they've been able to use. And some get one-time assistance, and it's up to 6 months, so it just depends on, case by case, what the veteran is needing, as well as survivor spouses.
Okay, everything good? Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion, Greg, second, David to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. For Ms. Chambers on number 5 here, consider and approve the service contract from Tyler Technologies to facilitate changes to Tyler Eagle Recorder, the county clerk's office, to be paid through the Records Management Fund for $1,200. Thank you for using your Records Management Fund once again.
Well, this is actually, we're updating the records. We're adding all the maps and plats to the online web system, and we need some assistance from Tyler in programming that and making it available to the public. So that's their charge to do that. But we're excited to have all the maps and plats online.
We
So
are too.
everyone will be able to see what's happening in Liberty County and see all the building and everything.
Got a motion from David to approve.
Second.
Second from Greg. All in favor, say aye. 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 Likewise, nays. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Lee. We've had some pretty neat things through IT, and thanks to you and Nick and the company and Kyle. Thank you, Kyle. And this is one of them. We can put these plants out there so we can look at them. One of the things that we're going to be working on in the near future, and I'm working with David on this, is developments. We talked to the CAD about with their mapping group and see if we can, people ask questions, where's this development going to be located? And we're trying to put a county map together to show where these developments are, which would help folks to know that when they start asking questions, what precinct is this in? Or we'll even have a line there that shows you that's in precinct 3, 4, 1, 2, whatever. And then they can ask their questions either through their commissioner or county attorney's office or the sheriff or my office, take your pick. But it sure would make it a lot easier for them to be able to look online and see this, and not have to come on down to Liberty and see you at your office, even though they'd love to see you.
Well, the system will link the maps to the deed records as well. So when somebody has a deed record, they want to see where it is on the plat map, they can pull it up and look at it. So it's real nice.
It is.
We're getting to the end of it. Yay.
Yay. Hallelujah. All right. Number 6.
That's my attention.
And for Ms. Chambers, also consider and approve the renewal of GovQA software program for public information request management. Imagine that. GovQA was bought by Granicus after the initial purchase and contract approval. So the renewal will be with Granicus and the same contractual terms and conditions for $15,450 to be paid from, thank you very much, the County Clerk Records Management Fund. So all this is when people send in a PIA. Okay.
Yeah, I think we probably need to expand our training a little bit, and I think that it needs to be, but for what it does, it's pretty great. It tracks when the request comes in, how fast we respond. It generates automatic responses back to them. It's nice software. It was a little slow starting, but I think it's starting to do what we bought it to do. And I think as we go forward in the future, these public information requests are become more and more critical. So I'm happy with it. I think Matt's happy with it.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we paid for it last August, so this is the renewal. But they did get bought out by a bigger company, so we have to change that as well.
This kind of helps on like repetitious PIAs also.
Yes,
Yeah.
once we respond, if we get a similar one, we can refer them to the same response that we did previously. It just cuts a lot of work down. Once you get it set up, it's really nice. I mean, I can literally just go through in the afternoon and boom, 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 address all of the ones that come in. So
Okay. What's the court's pleasure? Motion, Greg, second, David to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Number 7, Mr. Brown. Brother Rick, he's up here and consider and approve the contract for tax assessment and collection services between Liberty County and Dayton ISD. Pursuant to the authority granted by Section 6.24 Texas Property Tax Code and Chapter 791 of the Texas Government Code. It's been a long time.
It has,
to work on this.
and it's been a tale of two cities almost. I'll leave it at that. But it is rather historic, even though I know the county right now has entered into, I think to date, 25 agreements to collect and assess taxes for the governing bodies. And it's kind of a one-way street. The tax code provides that an entity can collect their own, but it also provides that if they want the county to protect them, to collect for them and assess, there's really not an option, but they have the option to keep their own, system in place, their own personnel, their own software, their own expenses and all that. And ever since I've been in the tax office, I've always kind of had this eye on see why Dayton and there's two others, Tarkington and Devers, two other school districts. And again, I'm not pursuing them, but the invitation's there if they want us to take them over. I kind of parallel to an interlocal agreement, just like if you're, as a commissioner, you're using your equipment, they're paying for the supplies, maybe a city, and you have that agreement where you share and use your resources. We made a run at this in 2017 because the existing tax assessor for the school district was retiring.
Right.
So I kind of made a run for it at that point. Thought that was a good chance to look at it. We pursued it. We got Commissioner's Court approval, even to hire one of their displaced people. But the school district chose not to consider it that time, which again, no problem. They had their reasons. Well, the opportunity presented itself again this summer when I found out that their current tax assessor collector was retiring in October. So again, same approach, go in and kind of explain, what we would be doing, knowing that they had done this from the beginning, just like every city, every entity used to have their own tax office. And then I think some of our contracts go back to the early 80s when we took on the collection for, some of the schools and counties and cities and districts. So it's been around a while and they've had their own system. They've had 2 employees. They maintain their own software to do all these things. So it simply wasn't a matter of us taking over the personnel. They were really genuinely concerned, can they get their same collections by housing it outside? And so that was pretty much a tough challenge to have to convince them that we can take on this deal without it. You're not giving up anything. So we compared school rates with school rates. We used their collection period, our collection period. We also took the contract that we had Bickerstaff, I think, update in 2019 when we took on the new MMD and the NUD. That was the first time we'd done any new entities since the early 80s. I knew they had some points of concern. I met with them 2 months ago with the board, entertained questions. I knew some of their points of discussion were, can we still control who gets the penalty and interest waived? Can we still do our own truth and taxation collections, calculations? Can we pick our own attorney to collect? And like I told them, all those points are embedded in the tax code. We can't require something that the tax code already provides for them. So I took the liberty of going into the Bickerstaff 2019 contract. And of course, since that time, we're not using effective tax rate and rollback rate. So we had to update the language on that. But I also took the liberty to define their governing body control in those specific points. So I highlighted that, showed them that it's in their contract. That's not something that's up to me or y'all. That's embedded in the tax code. So those were comforting to them as well. And I'm pleased to report that last Tuesday at the school board meeting, even though it wasn't unanimous, we got a 5-2 approval for the school board to contract with Liberty County for the assessment and collection of their 2022 taxes beginning in October. Of course, they fully understood that it's a 2-step process. We got their approval, and so today I'm coming before Commissioners Court to recommend approval of the contract that has already been approved by Dayton ISD trustees. I've had the contract looked over, Catherine and with Matthew's oversight, I think looked over the contract before I presented it to them. I actually have an executed copy where the president of the school board signed off on their contract. And so it's basically a revenue net cost. All it's going to be is we're going to take the tax statement for citizens of Dayton School District, add it to the tax bill that we already send out. We already deal with every taxpayer that pays Dayton ISD because we collect their county. The only exception are the ones that are in Harris County because they're paying somebody else, but that's a few. The majority, there's 27,000 accounts in Dayton ISD. So by approving this, we will not only collect their city of Dayton or their hospital or their fire district, we will also collect their school taxes. So they'll get one bill. It'll be less, I think, confusing to the taxpayer, not getting 2 different bills. There'll be an efficiency that Dayton School can actually not have the expense of 2 employees. And we charge them our contract rate of 32 cents an account, right at $8,500. So it's not a cost to the county because we can't charge them anything more than the actual cost of collections. So it's net revenue generator. It's no more work for us as an entity because we're already dealing with the customer. They're already coming to our office in Liberty, or now they can go to Liberty, Dayton, Cleveland. We can also work out contracts with them because now we can utilize all the information in trying to get the taxpayers caught up. Because usually if they're behind with us, they're behind with the school, and vice versa. So it gives us another tool to use. I don't see any downside to it. I think it's good for the taxpayers, definitely at Dayton ISD, and I don't think it's causing any burden to the taxpayers of the county. In particular, I'm actually meeting with the person who would be displaced as a result of them closing the tax office. I'm meeting with this lady tomorrow morning. I wanted to wait till y'all took action on it, but I'm not asking for a new employee because in the meantime, our county treasurer assisted me in offering one of my employees a position. I did not replace that position. So thank you. At first I didn't come up with that idea, but it's grown on me. So now I actually I'm in a position where I can actually offer that person if, first of all, if they want it and if they meet our requirements, we'll find that out. But I'm not coming before them offering that before coming to you for approval because I actually have an open spot. So that kind of worked out. Otherwise, I would have been asking for possibility of hiring that person because they didn't want to displace anybody by closing their office. So this has been a loyal person. So they didn't want any offset to it. So I think that could work out well. Again, we don't know, what decision that would be done, but, I think in general, it's a good thing for us. And again, that would leave us only 2 entities that we're not collecting for on a consolidated basis. They're also going to pay the expenses for the software conversion. So there's no there's no out of pocket on that. There's really, like I said, no new expenses. It's just more consolidation and more clarity to the taxpayers.
No big negatives. Okay.
So,
all right.
Any questions? I'll entertain. I think I've covered most of the points. Contracts have been already looked at. So
I'll even make that motion.
Okay. About his story.
Yeah. Need a second?
Second.
Got a motion for Dave, second for Craig to approve. All in favor, say aye. Likewise, no. That motion carries. Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate it. That's been a long time we've been on this one.
Yeah.
All righty. Number 8, from Mr. Postner, County Attorney, and from Ms. McCarty, Assistant Attorney. Consider to approve amendment to the Liberty County Employee Handbook for a previous omission regarding segment stating that retirees who are vested with the county, that is employed full-time for a minimum of 8 years, are eligible to receive county health insurance benefits. So Matthew or Catherine?
At this point, we are going to ask to table this, but I do want to at least describe to the court where it's coming from on this, kind of give some insight. Y'all will recall that a couple of years ago, we revised the retiree health insurance portion of the handbook to say that anybody who began their employment before that date would continue under the old policy, and the county would still contribute when they retire to their health insurance premiums. For folks who were hired, not vested, retired, but hired after that date, that person, when they retire, 5, 10, 20 years, they would be responsible for full freight, more or less, of their health insurance. This does not change that requirement, okay? What we've encountered, the treasurer's office has encountered, is a bunch of situations where the current language of the policy really is too ambiguous, and we need to remove some of that ambiguity. So, for example, the language requires right now that a person be eligible for retirement through TCDRS, okay? The problem is TCDRS allows people to transfer years of service from, say, the military or other governmental retirement systems and count that as years of service here. So theoretically, a person could come in, having spent a career somewhere else, work a week for the county, and then because of the years of service in TCDRS are compliant or happy with that their years of service, then they could immediately retire through us, and we would be obligated to provide health insurance. And so I'm not saying that that's one of a number of scenarios. Another kind of scenario are folks who come back to the county after having retired. How do you deal with those sorts of situations? So I kind of wanted to just put it on y'all's radar. We will come back with some modified language to amend, to clarify is really where we're coming from. We're not trying to drastically overhaul retiree health insurance at all.
Okay.
So right now, you're not supposed to table this?
Just please table it. No.
Okay. So moved.
Got a motion from Greg to table. Second from David. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. Motion carries. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you getting that clarification. Number 9, Gospel Hunter. Good to see you here this morning, bud. Appreciate you coming in. Consider and approve interlocal agreement between Liberty County and Tarkington ISD for the purpose of providing general safety and administrative support to the Tarkington ISD. And that's for the school resource officer, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Come on up here and visit with us. We don't get to see you that often, so we want to get a chance to
I try to
visit.
stay up north.
I know.
So I already have the 2 officers contracted in lieu of the Uvalde situation. Tarkington has asked for a 3rd to help cover the 2 smaller schools.
Right.
Mr. Post's office has drew up the contract. The contract's been approved by the school board and the superintendent. I'm just asking for it to be on court here and be approved from Commissioner's Court so that I can get this moved forward.
Take a motion to approve. Got a motion, David.
So,
Second from Greg to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
thank you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. Appreciate y'all taking care of the youngins.
Yes, sir.
Number 10 from Mr. Douglas and David, don't go sit down anytime soon. You got a bunch of them on this. Permits
How's
inspection.
everybody today?
We're good. We're good.
Yeah.
Consider and approve the acceptance of roads in Santa Fe Section 8. I'm going to ask this and be tabled because there's conflict of interest with David, and we don't have a quorum to establish a vote on this particular one. So I'll make a motion to table. Second, Greg. All in favor, say aye. Likewise, that motion does carry, and we'll bring that up at the next meeting. Okay. Number 11, consider and approve draw number 15 for GLO infrastructure grant number 20065095 C264. Reimbursement request the amount of $463,919.77. This funding will come back to the county. Approval is recommended. Okay, pretty well speaks for
About all you
itself.
can say about it, Judge.
Yeah, it's just a wash. That's basically what it is.
These bills have been paid.
Yes, sir.
It's time for us now to draw funds down from the state,
Right.
and that's what this is.
Got a motion from David, second from Greg to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. Motion carries. Number 12, consider and approve draw number 16 for GLO infrastructure grant number 20065095 C264. Reimbursement request in the amount of $14,389.50. This funding will come back to the county.
Same scenario.
Same scenario. Got a motion from David. Second from Greg. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. Motion carries. Number 13, consider and approve the final pay to Grant Works for GLO grant 20065095 C264 in the amount of $14,389.50. Just offsetting.
Offsetting. We drew the money down. And draw number 16, we're not going to pay the money out.
Okay.
This will be the final payment to Grant Works
Yes, sir.
for this particular grant.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion David, second from Greg. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Move right along. Number 14, consider and approve the grant completion report for the GLO infrastructure projects that were recently finished on contract ID number 20065-095 C264 approval and submission of this final report is recommended.
Yes.
So once again, this closes the books on this particular one.
Yes, sir, this is correct. And this document, once it's executed, will go back to GLO to show that the project has been closed out.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion David, second Greg to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Nays. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Appreciate you, Dave. Number 15 from Mr. Poston, our county attorney. Consider and approve transfer of 2 community development block grant disaster recovery program grants we received from Liberty County from Hurricane Ike funds for rehabilitation of Dayton Park Apartments from Dayton Park Ventures Limited to Fairfield Residential. This is a name changes.
It's a name change, yes. This was on Commissioner's Court agenda, I think, like 2 weeks ago.
Yes, sir.
And I wanted to look into it to make sure that the folks who, at Fairfield are going to be obligated by the same terms as Dayton Park Ventures. I've checked into it. They certainly are. Everything will carry forward full force and effect with them. So I see no problems in this.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion David, second from Greg to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. Motion carries. And for Mr. Poston, number 16, consider and approve interlocal agreement with San Jacinto County for the housing of Liberty County inmates. Here you go, Sheriff. Got a place to put some more of. Yeah. Okay.
Move to approve.
Okay.
Motion from Greg, second from David to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. Motion carries. And be sure and tell Judge Fulton, thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to take some folks up here to see him. Number 17 for Mr. C, discuss approve construction of the Northwest Annex using ARPA funds. We had to do a little track star work on this one. So,
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on, a long time with the Northwest Annex, but y'all have approved, I guess, the first of this fiscal year to go out for proposals to build that. Proposals were sent out, received, several committee met, interviewed them. We're at the point right now, just about ready to award it or present it to y'all to award. And we did it according to state law, purchasing law. That's the way we're planning on paying for it. Now it's come up that we're going to use ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan. If we do that, then we have to go back and do it according to federal requirements. Grant Works is our administrator on ARPA, so they'll be working with Liberty County on doing that. So this is, if y'all do want to use ARPA funds, then if you approve this, then we can get started on that.
Kind of give me a little timeline on this. I mean, we're gonna have to go back and hire a new architect.
Right now, we had that meeting with Grant Works the other day, 2 reps said, since we already hired an architect to pay them, that's okay, but we can't include that in ARPA.
Okay.
We can't get reimbursement for that.
Right.
We've already paid for that.
Right.
There was some question we asked about the engineer. Probably doesn't require an engineer, but I think one of the girls was going to check. She wasn't really positive on it.
Well, A&E ought to be inclusive under the architectural plan.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
okay.
it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're clarifying that right now.
Okay. I think we need to use the ARPA funds on this. Okay, simply because we know what our tax rate is, guys. And canned shoestring potatoes only last so long, right? That's kind of where we're at. So you open that can and there it goes. So I'll make the motion to approve construction of the Northwest Annex using ARPA funds on this measure.
Second.
A motion from me, second from David. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. Motion carries. Okay, we got past that step. Number 18, discuss and approve rejecting RFQs for construction of the Northwest Annex. So we're going to go back and do away with those.
Yeah, but now that I started thinking about it, after I already put this on here, just in case Grant Works comes up with something that does throw a big hickey in it, which they have on some other things
Well, yeah.
trying to do with ARPA funds, I might want to table that and maybe we can reject them at any time. They're still good, just to make sure everything's okay with ARPA. Or you can reject it, don't matter to me, but
I'd say
to
David.
me, yeah.
You'll make that motion, David? Okay.
I think my next board will have, will be
I
clear.
say,
Motion David to table, second Greg. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. Motion carries. Okay, I think we're back to teeing up the football one more time. Okay. And that was, by the way, we had a meeting with Grant Works a week ago Friday. And very, very, very informative meeting. And what happens invariably is sometimes we communicate through emails. Well, I like to look somebody in the eye when I talk to them. And my wife tells me it makes her nervous when I do that, but it's okay. But she's been married to me for 42 years, so she's gotten used to it. But the whole thing is when you look at somebody and discuss this, I get a better feeling about it. Emails just don't make me feel real good. And we had this discussion. Grant Works was here. We got some clarification. And now I feel that we're on the right track. So there we are. Number 19, from Commissioner Korbowski, consider and approve surface and road use agreement for storage of road and bridge equipment and materials.
I did speak with the commissioner about this. It's been a little bit, but the road use agreement is just allowing him to store some of his heavy equipment on private property. This is our standard
Right.
agreement.
Well, it beats the heck out of dragging equipment halfway across the county
yeah.
and then taking it back the same day.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, thank you, David.
Second.
Motion from David, second from Greg to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. Motion carries. Number 20 from Commissioner Karbowski, consider and approve refund request on culvert purchase in the amount of $425 to Rosa Cantu. I don't know about that one.
I don't know anything about this.
Where did they put it? The AD didn't give her the right plan or something. So
Okay.
maybe didn't get her money
Well,
first.
let's table that until Bruce is here to explain. I'll make the motion to table.
Second.
A motion from me, second from Greg to table. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Put a little mark on this one. Number 21 from Mr. Poston, consider and approve interlocal agreement with Hardin ISD for the provision of a school resource officer.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, this is our standard agreement. I thought I might add to the report too. We've kind of discussed, with all these different school resource officer agreements that we have out there. The Commissioners Court passing a single one and then using addendum so that all the contract terms are the exact same across the county every time. It makes everything a lot more efficient. But in any event, until we kind of turn over to that system, just individual.
Right. What's the court's pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion David, second Greg to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, no. Motion carries. Thank you, Jeff. Number 22 from Mr. C. Discuss, consider, and select engineering service providers on behalf of the city of Ames to complete project implementation for the American Rescue Plan Act, funding administered by the U.S. Department of Treasury, other federal or state agency. So here we go. This is, once again, the grant words shuffle.
American Rescue Plan.
Yeah.
The City of Ames, a committee was set up. We received proposals from engineering firms. They interviewed them, scored them. You can see on the front. The best score, they were pretty equal on work performance and capacity to perform, but with experience. Schomburg and Polk came out a lot higher than the other two. So the recommendation is to hire Schomburg and Polk for that project.
I'll make that motion to approve. That motion me, saying Greg to approve Schomburg and Polk with this selection for the engineering service on behalf of the city of Ames. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, nays. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Don't sit down yet, Harold. We got one before. Okay. Consider to approve recommendation award request for proposal number 2205, permitting inspections software for the engineering and permitting department. We got a little toe stud on this one, or is it okay?
Stephanie spent lots of time on this.
Yeah.
There was a lot of negotiation. Unfortunately, she had to work with David Douglas.
I know. It is rough. Yeah.
So
I've been working with David about 13, 14, 15 years now. It's rough.
So since she spent all the time on it, a whole lot more than happy, she's going to answer any questions you may have.
Harold, you're definitely out for Christmas.
So on Thursday, when we submitted items for the agenda, we thought this was going to be a recommendation to award. Instead, I'm going to present to you what was presented to us and you can make a decision.
Okay.
Okay. So we went out for proposals for permitting and inspection software for the engineering department. We received 2 proposals, one from Inspect to Go and one from Acela. They were ranked by references, by what they had to offer, and by the cost. So no, it wasn't the lowest bid on this one.
Mm-hmm.
However, the highest ranked was Acela, and they did come in at an overall 10-year investment for this software at $375,992.16 after negotiations. Inspect to Go came in at $500,000 with a 10-year investment.
All right.
And then I'll let David explain the problems we ran into after they made these concessions.
Well, we're trying to figure out, can I speak from here?
Come on. Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay. We were trying to work this thing out on a payment plan because we don't have $350,000 for one lump sum payment.
Oh, yeah, I can tell you that for sure. You can just ask Angela. Yeah.
I know better than to even ask.
So the offer was an upfront one-time upfront cost of $134,800. That would be software implementation, training, as several other things included in that. And then after that one-time cost of initial setup, it would have been just the subscription fee yearly for the software.
We were trying to set something up that would be $50,000 per budget for a 5-year period of time.
Yep, I remember that discussion.
We ran into some legal issues that Catherine has snipped out for us. And it's got to do with non-appropriation laws. You want to explain to them what that is?
The old
Sure.
non-appropriation law.
So
Okay.
I kind of blew up this deal after Stephanie has put hours and hours of work into this. Absolutely. But the fact is, I certainly appreciate the sellers' very generous offer, and they clearly want to work with Liberty County. However, the county just cannot guarantee future funds. And that's just the law. And there we are. We just cannot guarantee future funds.
We can't obligate next year's budget this year, more or less.
Right.
And the law's real clear that any contract we have that might be for a multi-year term has to have language in it that says if the county more or less goes belly up and we don't have the funds for that contract, that we don't have to pay it.
And the
That's
seller
just the nature of that.
does, they say they're okay with the non-appropriations clause, and that would be great, but they also want us to put in writing that we can guarantee 3 years worth of funds, and we just can't do that.
I should have stated, when they came back with after negotiations with the $134,000 upfront cost one time, and we presented to them that that is not a budgetary option for this department yearly upfront. So they actually came back and offered not to exceed $50,000 payments for 5 years, which would include the license fee that we'd be paying anyway of $23,040. And it breaks their initial one-time cost up into 5 payments of $26,960. If you look on the first page of what I gave you, this is how they broke it up for us. And they have been great to work with, and I guess they just really like us. They keep bending and bending and bending. So I guess what we're here to do is either reject these proposals or table it, and if this is something y'all wanted to do at a later date and find the money. I will say that if you reject and wanted to go out again for this, we did only receive 2 proposals for this, and it would be the same thing next time we go out to bid. There's going to be a big upfront cost. That's always going to be the issue.
You know, we approached this from a simplistic viewpoint, and it was like buying a dump truck, and you were going to carry those payments out over 3 or 5 years. I have way too much respect for Catherine and Matthew than to try and challenge something that they tell me is illegal.
We're just not going to do that.
We just can't do that.
I mean, you saw earlier, we renewed the GovQA. I mean, that's what you have to, I do that with all my software every year.
Yes.
I come in and I renew it.
The difference is they're financing this for us.
Yeah.
And they want some kind of guarantee that they're going to get paid. We can't give them that. So, you know, guys, when you got a busted deal, you got a busted deal.
Yeah, that's it.
You got to walk away from it.
Let me just ask you, is there any way to salvage this somewhere down the road? These seller wants to work with a poor county, and Lord knows we fit the bill right there.
You know, they have been absolutely delightful to work with.
Yeah.
They have been consummate professionals.
Mhm.
It was just the legal issues that we could not get around.
Right. Okay.
Very probably, we're gonna run into the same situation in the future if we try and do a financing
Mhm.
type situation.
Yeah.
So the budget is pretty much in place for next year. 22, 23.
Mhm.
Probably in 23, 24. That's a year and a half from now.
Mhm.
I'll sit down with the commissioners and we'll see if we can come up with 300 grand to buy some software.
Okay. Fair enough.
That's just all I know to
Yes.
do with it, guys.
Well, we're not even gonna table this one, guys. Just take no
Okay.
action. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'll move to take no action.
Can I say one other thing?
Yes, sir.
This young lady right here has worked her heart out on this project. And she is a delight to work with. And she's like pretty good.
Yeah. All right. You got a motion to take no action, for me, second for Greg, and all in favor, say aye. Aye. And that's it. I don't believe we're gonna have an executive session today, Matthew. I believe we're in pretty good shape. So I'm, need a motion to second to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion Greg,
Second.
second Dave to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Likewise, yeah, we are.